There is nothing as compelling as an adaptation of middling quality with character decisions that only make sense half the time. This, my friends, is by far the best way to quickly describe Disney Plus's Percy Jackson show. For the moment. Oh, of course, I was going to make a video on Percy Jackson. What, you think I have restraint? If Stranger Things is something that I cannot stop talking about because it's driving me bonkers, the Percy Jackson show is a smaller, more entertaining variant that I desperately need to discuss. Percy Jackson Season 2 is something of middling quality with a slow burn that's bubbling like boiling water. It's basically my bread and butter. Well, no, I like bread and butter. I made bread this weekend. It was great fun. Anywho, because I'm me, I, of course, was going to make a video discussing this show, and because, while there are definitely a couple more character-focused videos I have planned, including one on Luke Castellan, by the way, today we're going to be discussing the show as a whole, my thoughts, and specifically Season 2. But before we begin, hello everyone, my name is Rowan. I like talking about film and TV shows and literature and history and how all of these things connect, especially when it comes to character arcs. We're going to get into character arcs soon. Today, you might notice the really ploofy blanket. It is really cold at my house because I live in New England, and if I step outside, it feels like 10 degrees below. So pardon the fact that I am dressed completely counterintuitively to the plot of Percy Jackson, where they're basically in the tropics the whole time. It's cold. I like dressing somewhat to match the theme of my episodes, but there was no way I wasn't going to be wearing a thick sweater today. So, because I like not wasting your time and I'm trying to be vaguely concise with this video, look at that runtime, see if I achieved my goal, we're going to jump into the fact that I did not have high expectations going into this season. My expectations were low. Which, honestly, I think is the best way to go into an adaptation. I went into Season 1, ironically, with higher expectations because of the way Rick Riordan, the author of Percy Jackson, for anyone who doesn't know the full extent of the book lore, why are you watching a video on an adaptation if you don't know the book lore? I respect you for it. I've done it before, but I'm just surprised. Anywho, Rick was, he was really building it up to be this perfect book-accurate adaptation. A really specifically excellent adaptation. Oh, look, that's not what happened. Weird that. So, to sum up, no one was surprised it wasn't book accurate, like Rick said. Though the disappointment again, we got our hopes up, our hopes were lowered. Season 1 was bad. It wasn't very good. It wasn't even that it was bad because it was bad. It was bad because it was just so boring. The pacing was off. The characters were okay, but still vaguely problematic, and the lore changes decided upon were questionable. That's not to say there weren't some small high points. Luke and Percy's fight, excellent. Luke clarifying in his first scene with Percy that he thinks of Annabeth like a little sister. Perfection. Thank you. I'm still happy about that years later because it solved so many problems. But that out of the way, again, I went into Season 2 with low expectations. In fact, I wasn't even watching it while it was airing. I was in a state of romantasy brain rot. Oh, but then I saw the clips. But then I saw the edits. And right around episode 5, I decided it was time to jump back into Season 2, and I was surprisingly not disappointed. To begin specifically with why I think this season was far better than Season 1 on most levels, we need to discuss the pacing. Oh yes, the pacing. The pacing of Season 1 was bad because the first Percy Jackson book, Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, is not a book that is particularly complex in pacing. It follows relatively a 3-act structure, and therefore it should have been easy to map that structure onto a book. But they did not do that, and that created a lot of problems. It was a slow start, and then it was a quick to action, and then they were skipping entire plot points. Season 2 fixed some of the issues. The Sea of Monsters, again, has a bit of a slower start than an inciting incident. For the sake of speedily getting into the plot and getting into the Persebeth, the show decided to entirely take out the opening sequence of Percy getting attacked by monsters at his school, and instead Annabeth just shows up, they all go, and then they find the camp being attacked by monsters. Now, because of this, there is a chase scene, which isn't really in the books, And this results in all of the key information that was presented in, again, that original opening sequence from the book being introduced alongside the problem at camp. This allows for more action-packed start to the season and to the episode. And most importantly of all, it allows us to quickly introduce a new character, Tyson, effectively, while also reminding the audience about Percy and Annabeth's dynamic and how it's changed over the past year. Season 2 also follows a relatively more traditional 3-act structure, with a lot more falling and rising action throughout the middle episodes before we reach the climactic battle in the final episode. This allows for a lot more consistency, I'd say, and especially because it's still an 8-episode season, it effectively uses its limited number of time. That's another thing. The episode lengths were increased quite a few times, meaning that there was one episode that was almost 40 minutes long. This really benefited a lot of these plot lines. While not restraining them, while allowing the episodes to beat the 25 or 30-minute mark, Season 2 allowed the story to be more adequately paced. Think 4 episodes of 5, 6, especially in the second half of the season, which to me was the strongest in terms of writing and pacing, and alongside that, action scene. This again connects to a lot more small battles and skirmishes, which were quite frequent in the books, but in season 1 were a lot more constrained. For instance, the Medusa plotline seemed to meander in the first season, whereas in both the book and, surprisingly, even the bad as it may be film, were a lot more appropriately paced for the overall story of their respective book/film. This brings us again to especially the second half of Sea of Monsters, because here's the thing about Sea of Monsters. It doesn't have a big battle. There is no big battle at camp until the 4th book, The Battle of the Labyrinth. Battle of the Labyrinth, again, directly connects to it. By including a large battle at the end of the season, there are greater stakes. And by shifting the focus again from being on a side quest to being a more coordinated strike from Luke, allows for, among other things, more development on his character, Kronos as a threat, Percy as a character, and allows for the excellent Talia twist, which we'll get to in a second. And yes, before someone gets mad at me in the comments, I know I'm pronouncing her name wrong. I'm not going to stop pronouncing her name wrong. This is how my brain pronounces the name when I see it on paper. I'm sorry. You're just going to have to deal with it. I apologize. This brings us again to another key point, being the character development. Season 2 did character development way better than Season 1. Season 1 had a lot of little side juts that were weird. Percy and Grover's friendship was sort of let to the wayside. Percy picking Annabeth because of how desperately he doesn't think they could be friends, and then that never getting revisited, and then them suddenly becoming besties after a week. Like, look, in the books, there is a certain enemies to friends tilt to Percy and Annabeth in book 1, but, like, they really played it up in the show to not fully satisfying degrees. Which brings us to, I think, where Season 2 shined the most in its characters. Because here's the thing about Season 1. Because the thing with Percy Jackson is the plots can meander, but the characters are often very good. And there are some downsides to the characters. We'll get to the downsides to the character choices in a minute. But one, I think, strong point of Season 2 was its development of Clarice's character. Now, in the books, Clarice never really gets what I would consider a fully fleshed out arc. Clarice remains somewhat antagonistic towards Percy in a way that, because of the way the books are written from Percy's first person, quite unreliable narrator perspective, implies to us that Percy still thinks Clarice, while warming to him, it could still betray him. Even after Sea of Monsters, there is that, that lower tint to Clarice not fully being as close to, again, Percy, Annabeth, Grover. Season 2 deliberately changes this. It deliberately focuses on Clarice and changes from, in the books, her going on a quest with other demigods to her choosing to go only on her own. And by doing this, it does 2 things. First, the picking Annabeth and then Annabeth telling her not to pick Percy adds an element of angst to the Percy-Annabeth relationship this season. We'll get back to them later. But Clarice's eventual decision in episode 7 to go back and save Annabeth is fascinating. To go back to save Annabeth instead of the Fleece, while Percy goes to the Fleece instead of Annabeth, shows Clarice's care and development and how she has, over the course of this season, become friends with both Percy and Annabeth. This is a benefit to her character, and it kind of worries me for whatever they're going to do with season 3, because we already know there's going to be some changes to the plotline there. I'm not going to speculate about season 3 yet. I know nothing. We're going to wait and see, because as we've seen, I had low expectations going into season 2. I was pleasantly surprised. And I think overall, so far, when there have been plot changes, they have been beneficial. But the thing is, the plot changes to season 2, as iconic and fun as they are, and we'll get to them in a second. The fact that they leave us with a bit of a few small potential plot holes for the season 3 plot, look, it's not my problem yet. But I think it's interesting. Clarice's character arc in season 2 overall is one of personal growth. She has a positive change arc, and that is excellent for her character. But because we're going to do an even or here thing, we got to talk about Chris Rodriguez. Okay. So when I was watching this, I watched the first 5 episodes of season 2 in a binge with my close friend on a Sunday afternoon, I think, in early mid-January. It might have been Saturday. Either way, we binge watched the first 5 episodes, and they were pretty good. But there was one thing that stood out to the both of us, me especially, because I'm a stickler for character lore, and I remember this in season 2. Chris Rodriguez showing up at camp. Now, here's the reason that Chris Rodriguez showing up at camp and having a weird flirtation with Clarice set me on edge when it first happened, and I believe it was episode 2. I remember Chris's role in the books. I remember the fact that Chris ran away from camp, Percy sees him on the ship, and the next time we see Chris is in Battle of the Labyrinth, where he then returns, he's saved, changes were made. Another big thing about Chris is around Percy's age-ish. I can't remember his exact age. And I think this is a really important thing, because a lot of people have been talking about even trying to be more age accurate. They're still the actors have sort of aged out, because at this point, Walker is the age Percy would be in The Last Olympian, which worked out really well in this season for the iconic, that ship scene. That ship scene was amazing. The only thing that could have made that better is more dramatic music, but it's Bear McCreary, okay? My man, my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Outlander score, man, he did wonders this season. But I'm digressing. Back to Chris. Chris's character being visibly older, and again, the actors for both Chris and Clarice being a couple years older than Walker and Leah, creates problems. Because this means that not only did they shift it so Chris is at camp, he's one of the traitors, and then he actively chooses to betray camp, attack, and I'm not sure if they die or not, campers, and then run off with Luke, actively means that his return in potentially Battle of the Labyrinth and his relationship with Clarice are permanently altered. Having them have a flirtation and then having him go and betray her creates a dynamic that doesn't work with Clarice. The interesting part of Chris and Clarice's dynamic, especially starting in Battle of the Labyrinth, is the fact that she cares about him and she wants to help him recover after the madness the labyrinth inflicted on him and the weakness that he felt choosing Luke. Because again, the thing that the show is doing that I do not necessarily like is the fact that by making Luke more sympathetic, they are sacrificing the integrity of all of the demigods that Luke has recruited. Because in the book, there is an emphasis on the fact that all of these demigods are disillusioned with the gods, but they aren't necessarily disillusioned with Camp Half-Blood. They are not disillusioned with their siblings. And I think one key thing that they specify in the show with these Luke minions, these evil demigods, really gets on my nerves. The fact that the 2 specified demigods with their specified demigod parents is a daughter of Apollo and a son of Aphrodite. Because in the books, there's a heavy emphasis on specifically both Apollo and Aphrodite, and especially in Heroes of Olympus and later series, being much closer to their children. In fact, there is the implication quite frequently that there are very few Apollo campers who joined Luke. Because of the gods in the books, Apollo and Aphrodite are seen as relatively the most sympathetic, especially since Apollo gets his own book. This shift creates a very cartoonish vibe to the campers, especially, and I can't remember her name, the redheaded girl who really hates Annabeth, like loathes her guts. There's no valid reason that she, seemingly an adult, should be hating on at this point, canonically, 12 to 13-year-old Annabeth this much. No valid reason. There's no valid reason that she should hate Annabeth this much. Because here's the thing. In the books, the demigods working for Luke, and even Luke himself, are doing this because they're disillusioned with the gods, not their siblings. They don't take glee in killing their siblings. They don't have this excitement, this love of destroying their family. They want to destroy the gods. They want to enlighten their siblings. And this brings us to Luke. I was going to do this in a different order, but I think this is a nice segue into our discussion of Luke. Because I think Luke's character arc this season is one of the reasons I liked the show so much. Because Luke's character arc is fascinating and well developed and incredibly complex. Something that the book lacks, because the book is, again, from Percy's first-person perspective, unreliable narrator, POV. So, Luke Castellan is a character who is very contentious in the Percy Jackson fandom. There are a lot of people that loathe him entirely. There are a few people who are his defenders, and then there are a few people, I'd say, like me, who like the potential of Luke. They like the purpose, the idea of this fallen hero. I saw a post the other day, a few weeks back, on Instagram that a lot of people started talking about, which was something along the lines of Luke has the mind of a hero in a villain's body, and Percy has the mind of a villain in a hero's body. Because that is a really great way to sum up the decisions they are making. Sort of. It's complicated. Especially in season 2, Luke is emphasized as doing these things for the sake of camp. He is also seen to already be somewhat disillusioned with Kronos, and most importantly, he is still devoted to both Talia and Annabeth. This conflicting set of beliefs and needs creates a complex character for Luke that I think was lacking in the books, again, because of Percy's POV. Now, this is not to say that Luke in the books didn't have his own problems. I repeat, the Annabeth thing, they fixed that in the show already, and I'm still happy about it. But Luke in season 2, especially, being shown to be so conflicted and already so confused about his allegiance to Kronos, shows his true depths. Luke is not doing this because he wants to raise Olympus because he is angry and vengeful. He is doing this because he is disillusioned with the gods. Luke's vengeance is shown to be at a lower scale. Luke's vengeance is less important than Luke's determination to save camp. And this is really shown in his reluctance to attack camp, in his questioning, his facial expressions, his hope to not have to kill campers, in contrast to his squad of minions who are a lot more interested in killing their siblings for some reason. By focusing on Luke's conflicted nature, the season adds depth to a villain who is best described as a fallen hero. Because Luke was a hero, and while it's not as emphasized in season 1 as it is in the first book, Luke was at camp this mega hero, this star, this Hercules of the modern day. And Hercules, I think, will come back into it in season 3, I hope. But Luke was this shining gem, this perfect demigod. And then he turned. That is a fascinating concept. And it is a concept that the books somewhat explored. A lot of people hate Luke. Reading the books, I never hated Luke. I hated whatever weird thing Rick was writing between him and Annabeth on various levels. I really hated that. But I did not hate Luke. I was not, though, a Luke defender. I was a fan of Luke's character, of this flaw, of this darkness brewing inside him. I found it fascinating. It's at this point that I like to drop into the conversation that I am also a fan of Anakin Skywalker's character arc because it's fascinating. Is it perfect? No. Is it fun? Yes. I am also, again, anyone who gets this reference, a fan of the Targaryen family because they're messy and it's fun. Luke is a character who fully embodies this fallen hero archetype. He is the exact definition you look for when you're looking for a fallen hero. He was disillusioned by his failure, by the failure of the gods when it comes to Talia. And it's fascinating and it's beautiful and it's so compelling. The end of season 1, Percy and Luke, one of the only good scenes in season 1, to me, is Percy and Luke's conversation. Specifically when Luke specifies that none of this was meant to betray Percy. Luke never did this to betray him. Luke did this to save them all. To save them from the tyranny of the gods. Because the gods couldn't save Talia. And that brings us, my friends, to the season 2, episode 8 final twist. A twist that I thought I saw coming, and yet it was so much better by the final few minutes. The flashbacks to Luke, Annabeth, and Talia, and then also Grover, were really interesting, and I liked how they connected. I thought the bracelet plot was a bit flimsy, but you know what? It was an excuse for flashbacks. It was interesting. And it also gave an excuse for us to finally get Luke's ideas of his desperation to get Talia back. Oh, the little thaw Luke moments. I don't care if you all hate me for shipping them. It's the potential. It's the tragedy of them. It's the fact that they were totally in love with each other, and the betrayal. Oh my God. I love a good betrayal. Probably why I love Alex Astor's writing so much. But specifically, the thing about Talia that was very interesting to me this season was, again, the way they were setting her up. It seems very, very on brand. And then we get, of course, Percy's vision. His vision of Talia killing the kids at camp. He's worried. He's scared. But he thinks, he's writing it off. He gets that thought at the end. Because here's the thing about season 2, which brings us to the Talia plot that I think is very interesting. The decision to reveal more of the prophecy. The decision to specify half-blood of the eldest gods who reaches 16 against all odds, and have Percy connect this back to Talia. Because of course Annabeth wouldn't think of this. Annabeth is too consumed that she'll be able to get Talia back. But Percy thinks of it. Which again shows something that I think the books really don't appropriately address, is a lot of people, if they read the books on a first glance, assume Percy isn't that smart because he's always with Annabeth, who's a genius. But Percy is actually a great strategist. He is a great leader. And Percy putting together that Talia could be the child of the prophecy is a really important thing for him to do. Especially when he doesn't tell his mom, he doesn't tell Annabeth or Grover, because he doesn't want them to feel betrayed. And this brings us to episode 8 and the pure brilliance that is the final twist. Because I did not see this coming. I predicted we'd get a bit of dark Talia, a bit of, again, Percy Talia confrontation. I could not have guessed in my wildest dreams that they were going to pull a full 180 and go, it wasn't Hades that killed Talia. It was Zeus. Zeus turned her into the tree for insubordination. Oh, goosebumps. I clapped. I had to restrain myself from squealing so I wouldn't wake my college roommate up when I watched this episode. This twist was impeccable. It is a gorgeous twist. It's so juicy. I love it. This twist fully establishes not only the fact that Talia is a threat to Zeus, but that Luke's claim to Annabeth that Talia would not be on the side of the gods is entirely stationed in fact. Because Talia, out of all of them, even more so than Luke, should be the most disillusioned with the gods, and especially with her father. This is something that the books do not address. Percy, while does think there's a small threat of Talia being the child of the prophecy, Talia does not ever show temptation. She doesn't ever show a lean towards darkness in, I would say, a significant way. Now, this isn't to say she doesn't have her tempts, But I think, again, directly in comparison to Percy, and we'll get to Percy in a second. Oh my gods, we'll get to Percy in a second. Talia, in the books, even directly comparing her to Percy, does not show the same disillusionment. She doesn't like her dad. But until Zeus actively tries to kill her, there are no hints that she would betray him. By setting up hints that Talia is already primed to dislike, distrust, and potentially betray her father, there is a much more compelling arc, especially because Percy now knows her true reasoning. Percy knows that it wasn't Hades that tried to kill Talia. It was her father who turned her into the tree. And I guarantee you that if they do what I want them to do and Luke understands that it was Zeus that put her into the tree, oh, he's going to milk that. He is going to milk that betrayal, and we're going to get a tempted to darkness Talia. Now, because I talked about the good parts of Talia, I have to talk about the one continuity error that was sort of driving me and my friends insane. And that is the fact that the actress who they cast to play Talia is British and had the accent in the entire season. Look, okay, I will never complain about a British accent in a piece of media. But do you understand how actively contradictory that is to the most basest part of Talia's plotline? Chief among them, how did Talia, with her British accent, get from, I'm assuming, England to America? I really hope we get some depth on that backstory, because it's a bit jarring. It's a bit jarring for me. Though it did give us the potential of British Jason, which I would be so happy about if we ever get to a Heroes of Olympus sequel. If we get a British Jason, joy. Aside from that, there aren't any major problems, again, with Talia's character. Her character, great. I think the changes made present for a great conflict. But as I already mentioned, we got Luke, we got Talia. We got to circle back to our two connective tissues, our Percy and our Annabeth. The MVPs of this season. The shining jewels of why this season was so compelling to me. The characters and the relationship that I think single-handedly keeps this show afloat. That's right, we're talking about Percybeth, my friends. Of course we're talking about Percybeth. Now, before we get into Percybeth, I really want to establish one very clear thing. This is not a fast, slow burn. This is an appropriate slow burn. And I think a lot of people are getting very mad about book changes, about the fact that they're going too fast with Percybeth. Friends, colleagues, enemies alike, Percy and Annabeth are a very slow burn. This is still fully slow burn. There's a difference between a slow burn and characters not ever interacting outside of entirely platonically. I know this difference. I'm a big fan of a slow burn. I write slow burns, I read slow burns, I watch slow burns. My favorite ship of all time, Leopold Fitz and Gemma Simmons from Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., are a slow burn. A slow burn that, has its little light moments. Season 1, love confession, then near death. Season 2, date, then near death. Season 3, spoilers. Oh, I'm sorry, dearest. Oh, I'm sorry, my love. I was trapped on another planet and fell in love with its only other occupant. I'm sorry. Yeah, that happens. Percy and Annabeth are a great slow burn because they're a slow burn that are clearly entirely devoted to each other, and yet entirely devoted to each other. Entirely old married couple in their lovely dialogue exchanges, and best of all, entirely ready to destroy continents for each other. And this brings us to one of my favorite parts of the season. Percy, the overpowered kill a god for Annabeth Jackson. Because we're getting mid-level Heroes of Olympus Percy in season 2, and I am so here for it. Now, Percy in episode 4 was amazing. I did not see that coming. Now, obviously, again, Percy using his powers, that is something that happens in the books. But the way they were shown, the strength and the force that this child had access to. Look, I know we all like to joke that Percy's an unreliable narrator and everyone sees him as like, oh my gods, that kid is insane. And then Percy's there being like, oh, look, I'm having fun. Like, oh, I just made a little storm. A few raindrops appeared. But this episode really beautifully showed his power, and I think beautifully set up what is going to be a really fun conflict with Talia in season 3. But I know what we all really want to talk about. Or, well, let me rephrase, I know what I really want to talk about. And that's episodes 5 through 8. Because I think the quality of not only the Percabeth, but the way the plot was ingrained with the characters and the character actions and decisions in the second half of the season was brilliant. Because in episode 5, we get something that most of us watching episode 5 went, oh, this is foreshadowing for a later season. No. Oh no. Oh no, you're so wrong. This is foreshadowing for episode 6. This is foreshadowing for what is about to happen, guys. Because Percy goes in a moment of pure glory. I had so much fun with this scene. He goes, and I quote, "If I had to choose between you and Olympus, Annabeth, I'd burn it all down." The brilliance, the perfection, the pure Percy God-Killer Jackson energy that line elicited. And I'm a big fan of Burn the World Down lines. Again, Alex Astor, Sarah J. Maas, Cassandra Clare, my queens of relationships that just, tear out my heart and soul with their variants of this, with Love Kills Kingdoms, with all the beauty. This man I don't know who in the writer's room said we should have this line in here. Whoever you are, if you see this video, thank you for your service. Thank you for giving the freaking romantasy girls our dream come true. But above all else, thank you for showing the purest form of book accurate Percy being so in love with her and not realizing it we've ever seen. Because I know Walker's gone in interviews and gone, oh, he'd do that for any of his friends. And yes, there is the element of that. But I'm sorry. Back to the Luke has a hero's mind and Percy has a villain's mind comparison. This is a villain's mind. This line is a line that enemies, that the villainous love interest, the dark brooding, prince or king of all shadows says to the main character and scares her off. This is the line that you see in romantasy from the villain love interest. It is always the villain love interest. The villain love interest pulls out the I'd burn it all down. Percy Jackson, if given the choice, Percy's fatal flaw is loyalty. This is an established fact. But the fact that the show has the guts to take it a step further and not just show you that his fatal flaw is loyalty, but to show you that he is actively going to work against the best interests of the entirety of Camp Half-Blood and the Gods for the sake of one person, for Annabeth. Amazing. Which brings us to the direct foreshadowing. Again, I watched this scene. I went, this is amazing. This is going to connect to later seasons. This is going to connect to season 3. I was not ready for episode 6, my friends. I was not ready for Mr. Percy Just Take It Jackson. I was not ready for Percy going, yeah, you know what? Yeah, here, Luke, take the fleece. Take the fleece and go, as long as she's alive. I saw a video that was like, when writers say his eyes darkened with the scene where Percy is watching Luke. Walker's acting this season was really good. I'm not saying it's a good for all acting overall. I'm saying that for a child actor, this acting was amazing. This acting, I felt the emotion. I felt the intensity of all of this. And I'm so just mesmerized by it. We get this again also in episode 7. Again, Percy being just like, I'm getting her back. Oh, my man, season 3 is going to destroy you. And it's going to be glorious. And I'm so excited for it. I digress again. Because Percy and Annabeth in this season, I haven't talked a lot about Annabeth in terms of character arc because I think her character arc is one that is a little less complete than everyone else in terms of just the season. Because Annabeth's character arc this season focuses a lot on her conflicting emotions about Talia and Luke. And I don't think either is going to be resolved until the end of season 3. So I didn't really want to talk about her as much because again, it isn't complete yet. But I do hope that what we have with Annabeth is a setup for a great conflict in season 3. I really hope we have a scene or two between Luke and Annabeth after she's been taken. And I really hope we get that scene between Talia and Luke, that confrontation, that the fully of development of the betrayal. Because Annabeth's still wanting to save Luke. Annabeth's still trying to get him to come back to them, to come back to her and Talia, is compelling. And it's going to be devastating in season 3 when I'm assuming this is entirely destroyed. And I don't know how it's going to be destroyed yet, but I know that Annabeth is going to be betrayed. And Luke's going to betray her, and it's going to be devastating. But it's going to be brilliant because it's going to make her come back stronger and better. And it's going to fit again with this Greek tragedy of it all, this tragic, heartbreaking family that she has found herself losing. Because Talia and Luke and Annabeth's relationship is one of the greatest tragedies of the story. And I love it. And it's beautiful. And aside from a Percy and Talia clash, which I'm really looking forward to their dynamic, especially after Annabeth is taken, there is a lot of great potential for this tragedy, for this drama, for Luke, for Percy, for Talia, for Annabeth. And I'm really excited for it, especially once our boy Nico comes into it, because it's Nico. We love Nico. But I, again, sadly have to say, we do have to talk about one thing first, which is, now I've been gushing for a while, but before we end the video, I do want to come back to, I think, some of the ups and downs of the season overall. Like I said, I think the second half was really good. The first half was okay. But I think, again, some of the ups and downs presented by the show, some of the smart choices they've made, for instance, sacrificing secondary characters to focus more on the main characters, to focus more on Tyson and Grover, both of whom were iconic this season. Tyson and Grover, they were amazing. I think is going to become detrimental later on. Because unless we do a lot of development really quickly, when we get to the Battle of the Labyrinth, the devastation, the fact that characters we know and care about have died, is not going to be there. And I think that this is going to cause problems. Not because it's not going to be emotional, but because a key component of Percy Jackson is this expanded group, this friendship, this connection Percy feels to everyone, this devotion he feels to helping camp. And so far in the first 2 books, we haven't really seen it. And that's not to say we might not see it in season 3 or in season 4, but I think it's going to be too little too late. Because by the time we get to season 4, which has been confirmed at this point, by the time people are starting to drop dead, I don't think we'll have developed these secondary or side characters enough, or Percy's connection with them enough, or even Annabeth's connection with them enough, for it to fully be impactful when Percy is watching his friends bury each other. That is all I have for today, and that is sort of my warning for season 3. I think that the writers have to be careful, and I think they have to be very intentional with the choices they make. I don't know what changes are going to come in season 3. I know it's coming out this year, which I'm really excited about. I promise I will make some videos. I will definitely be making videos when that comes out. Probably not weekly. I might do like a half and half, or if something really interesting happens character-wise, but I like waiting usually till the end of a season, with, again, the exception of Stranger Things, because I was losing my mind and I was in a state of brain rot and had nothing else to do. It was winter break. But I think that'll be really interesting, and I can't wait for season 3. I, again, am going in with middling hopes. My bare minimum, as long as Percy is feral for Annabeth and he and her hold up the sky, I have no hopes, okay? I'm not going to put my hopes on Luke Talia stuff because I know I'm not going to get that. I've resigned myself. There's AO3, as minimal as it is. But that's mostly just, I really want to see what they do with Percy and what they do with his devotion to Annabeth. As we've already established, him already going, I will burn Olympus down for you. And I think that'll be really interesting in season 3. But that said, I hope you all enjoyed today's video, and if you're interested in sticking around, consider hitting that subscribe button, liking this video, and commenting what your favorite or least favorite part of Percy Jackson Season 2 was. I really want to know what other people's opinions were. I always find it enjoyable, and I think it's fun to have a little discussion about, like, oh, this character was cool, or this character was bad, or I really hated this scene. It's okay. If you really hated the I'd burn it all down for you scene, that's okay. I respect you. I disagree, but I respect our differences of opinion. So please drop a comment if you want to continue the discussion there. And so please drop a comment if you want to continue the discussion there. And remember to stay tuned for weekly uploads. Mostly I'll be gushing about characters or media or stuff. I do have a video plan that's coming out soon that also touches on Percy Jackson, which is going to be about why adaptations always fail. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. I will be posting it soon. Bye everyone. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.